All right, so we're diving into a case that's got everyone talking, even after all these years, the Menendez brothers.
A story full of shocking twists and turns, and it really makes you question everything. Family, wealth, what goes on behind closed doors, you name it.
And I, for one, am ready to unpack all of it. Let's start with the basics. August 20th, 1989, Jose and Kitty Menendez are found murdered.
Brutally. Shot to death in their Beverly Hills mansion.
You said it, so naturally suspicion falls on their sons, Lyle and Eric. But there's no immediate evidence. What happens next?
Well, that's where things get interesting. The brothers start spending a lot. Like a lot of money. Cars, watches, even a tennis coach, right?
Right, which obviously raises red flags. But was it just grief spending, or were they trying to cover their tracks?
The prosecution definitely saw it as a sign of guilt. Cold-blooded and calculated, motivated by their parents' fortune.
So how does Eric's confession fit into all this?
That's the bombshell, right? He doesn't go to the police. He tells his psychiatrist in 1992, who then, because of mandatory reporting laws.
Has to go to the authorities. Now that is the choice. To confide in a therapist. Why do you think he did that?
It really speaks to the core of their defense. They claimed years of horrific abuse from their father, Jose, sexual, emotional, physical.
And they claimed they finally snapped, driven to kill out of fear for their lives.
Exactly. So going to a therapist, confessing there, it could be seen as a cry for help, a way to finally deal with this trauma.
And it completely blew the case wide open. The trials became a media frenzy, televised, debated. Everyone had an opinion.
It was the early 90s version of going viral.
Absolutely. So walk us through the trials. The first one in 1993 ends in a hung jury. What does that tell us?
It shows just how divided the public was. Some people saw Lyle and Eric as these sympathetic victims trapped by their father's abuse. Others saw them as cunning manipulators. The jury couldn't agree, hence the deadlock.
Okay, but then the second trial, 1996, they're found guilty. First-degree murder, conspiracy, life sentences. You'd think that would be the end of it, right?
You would, but you'd be wrong. This case has been back in the news lately with some pretty compelling new evidence.
And this is what really fascinates me, because I thought I knew this story. Tell me about this new evidence.
Well, for starters, there's Eric's letter, written in 1989, right before the murders.
To his cousin, right? And it detailed the abuse.
Right. But for whatever reason, it wasn't admissible evidence in the original trials. So that's a big question.
Yeah.
Why not? And how does that change things now?
Exactly. And then you have the Roy Rossello accusations.
Oh, right. A few years back, Rossello, who was a friend of the family, came forward alleging that he too had been sexually abused by Jose Menendez.
And that adds a whole other layer of complexity, because it suggests that this wasn't just about Lyle and Eric, that there might have been a wider pattern of abuse within that family.
Which makes you question everything all over again.
For sure. So where do things stand with the case now?
Well, in May of 2023, the brothers' lawyers filed a habeas corpus petition.
Basically arguing they're being unlawfully imprisoned.
Right. They're saying this new evidence warrants a new trial, that the jury needs to consider this information.
Wow. It's amazing how a case this old can still hold so many surprises.
That's the thing about families. There are always secrets, layers upon layers, that we may never fully uncover.
And what's so fascinating about the Menendez case is that it forces us to confront these uncomfortable questions about abuse, about family dynamics, about the weight of wealth and privilege.
And ultimately about how we define justice. Because even with a guilty verdict, this new evidence has sparked so much debate.
It really makes you think, like, can we ever truly know what goes on behind closed doors? And how much should past trauma influence the way we judge someone's actions?
Those are the questions, aren't they?
Tough questions, and ones that I'm sure our listeners will be grappling with long after we're done here.